Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it is the 15th day of November 2024, beginning a hunting season in the state of Michigan here, and I wish all the hunters and the deer both good luck today. So I hope you're having a great day. So first hour, we have Nick Prill and Stephanie Boone and Dr. David Kent, and then second part of the first hour, we're going to split it up. We've got Ralph and Karen that's going to come on. And at 10 o'clock, we've got Health Freedom Idaho with Miste Karlfeldt and Sarah Clendenon and David Pettinger, which should be a really fun show today. They've been real active at protecting parental rights as well as medical freedom. So, these people are really on the ground working. They're working with Casey up there, which I think everybody that watches this regularly knows that Casey is boss level patriot. He just keeps going and never stops. With that said, I'm going to bring on my buddies here. Good morning, Stephanie, Nick, and David. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Great.
Good. So I hear last night we had a special Kent GOP convention of some sort, and I wanted to give you guys a chance to talk about what happened there, because from the outside it looked like there was a little chaos, and once again we're going to go back to the grassroots to tell the real story. So what happened?
Well, the process for delegates in a convention always starts with delegates running on the primary ballot in August to represent their precinct as a delegate to the county convention. And that county convention is where the first county convention that normally gets called is to elect new leadership for the county party. As we look at what's happened over the last couple of years, the Kent County GOP has not been successful. Kent County sticks out like a sore thumb as blue on the map of Michigan from the election results last week. There was no get out to vote campaign. There was no voter contact. There was no voter guides sent out to the county. And there was a lot of money that was funneled into deep blue races that just the candidates did not have a chance to win. So what I would sum that up as is just, there is a lack of quality leadership that is running the current county party. So we, a group of us came together about a year ago and said, we want to form kind of some alliances where we're bringing together reasonable people from the grassroots side and reasonable people from the traditional Republican side, recruit some new delegates, and really get our county back to a position where we can be, looked at as an organization of strength and really leading the charge to make electoral differences in Kent County. So we recruited a lot of delegates. We won a majority of the delegate races that we needed to in August. And then there's what I will call now the fringe minority that is currently in charge of the county party, did not like the results of that. In a desperation to hold on to power, they decided to call a special convention for last night to elevate or to fill vacancies of 55 precinct delegate seats that nobody ran in August and won. And they were going to try and bring in these 55 people that will vote in support of the current leadership to maintain the power in December and into the next 2 years. That convention was called on November 1st for the special convention for this election. And per Robert's Rules of Order, standard parliamentary procedure, there's a requirement that there's a 10-day notice for the convention to all of the body members that would be voting. We have delegates that, as of yesterday morning, I was making phone calls. They said, "Wait, there's a convention tonight?" And I said, "Yeah, didn't you get the email?" And they're like, "No, I didn't." I'm like, "Well, search for it." They're like, "I have nothing." I was like, "Yeah, me neither." I only found out about it from somebody else. So going into the convention last night, there was some major procedural issues on, lack of proper prior notice. And we were prepared to really, hang our hat on that going into the convention and saying, I don't know if this was intentional or if this was incompetence, but either way, we have a situation where we have an improperly called convention, which was clearly called for a power play. We got to the convention and the chair opened up the meeting and immediately went to voting on the 55 candidates. I stood up and made a motion and to try and adopt Robert's rules because they didn't want to have any sort of rules for the convention, which, lack of rules creates chaos and mob rule. And the chair ruled me out of order. And I made the motion 2 more times because even under general parliamentary procedure, if you're ignored by the chair, you can, standing in your place, repeat the motion 3 times. If the chair still doesn't recognize it, then you turn to the body and you can call as the member of the body, because we're self-governing, you can call for the vote. And an overwhelming majority of delegates voted for Robert's rules. The chair still chose to not recognize it. And then we voted to adjourn the convention without conducting any business. Again, I think it was 164 or 134 to 63 would be the vote of delegates in favor of adopting Robert's rules and then in favor of adjourning. Only 63 members chose to stick around to try and conduct what they believe is adequate business for the convention. So that's kind of in a nutshell what happened. I know Stephanie's got Stephanie had a different view than I did based on where she was sitting, and so there's certainly some videos. So I'll turn it over to Stephanie and fill in kind of gaps and where things I highlighted the bullet points, but there's certainly a lot of detail within some of those that I think is important to be shared. So Stephanie.
Well, yeah, that was a great recap. And Nick and I have been involved in these meetings, for the past couple years now. So what went on last night honestly wasn't a huge surprise to us, sadly, because this is kind of just par for the course anymore with the Kent GOP and 3rd District as well. So we walk in. And we weren't really shocked when we checked in, showed our ID, which is great. And then we were handed a printed out ballot with 55 names of strangers to me, most of them. And most people who checked in, I could hear them saying, what is this? And I asked the woman who I checked in with, I said, because she handed us a ballot and she said, this is for you to use during the voting. And I said, where did this list come from? And she said, I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm just doing what they told me to do. Well, this is my 2nd term as being a precinct delegate, but my husband was newly elected during this last cycle. So he hasn't seen this before. So he was next to me and, wondering what in the world is going on here. And as I look around and I listen, there were so many delegates scratching their heads going, what is this? So then when, Chair Shout starts the meeting and immediately moves into, we're going to have a vote. Here's your ballot with these 55 names. We're going to move to recess and sit down and mark your ballots. There were no rules. There was no procedure, no opportunity for anyone else to nominate, a hardworking patriot, a friend, you name it. For all we knew, they could have been communists. We don't know. So that was a scary thing, and people had zero opportunity to ask question or interject. Nick was immediately shut down. He followed what we know to be the rules and was completely ignored. And then other delegates stepped in, other members stepped in, tried to do the same thing. And it was really embarrassing. I was embarrassed for the new delegates who had to see what is going on in our county. The clear will of the body was that this was a bunch of crap going on. You can't just take a list and shove it down people's throats and expect them to accept that. So, we had some physical violence going on in the meeting. As soon as Nick was called out of order, I looked around and I said, is anyone videoing this? What is going on? Because it was chaos almost immediately. And, we've spoken before about the fact that I was actually removed from the Kent GOP Executive Committee about a year ago because I record meetings. That was their reason. And
well, they should be transparent. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about how things are being run. If it's not transparent and they've got to do things behind closed doors, how is that any different than what we're trying to fight on a national level? It's not. Exactly. And everyone involved in that should be absolutely ashamed of themselves, in the process. I mean, that's not okay. That's not serving the people. That's protecting a fiefdom.
Is there a reason that was there like a time limit or something that they had to meet to get these delegates to fill these vacant delegate seats?
Well, so going back to the procedural thing for just a second, there's a regularly scheduled fall convention, which is actually to take place on December 3rd, and at that convention, per Michigan State Republican State Party bylaws and Michigan compiled law, that is the convention in which the precinct delegates come together and elect the new executive committee to serve for the next 2 years in the county party.
What was the date of that, Nick?
December 3rd. Yeah.
Okay.
But there's also a rule that you cannot fill vacancies in precinct delegate positions until after you have conducted that business, right? So, if I look at what the spirit of that is designed to say, we respect the will of the electorate who went to the ballot boxes in August. These are the people that were elected by, the voters to come to this convention and determine who the new leadership would be.
Right.
Then after you've determined that, now you can then fill precinct delegate vacancies because there are certain additional benefits when you talk about like congressional conventions or congressional district conventions or state conventions. Obviously, we want to be fully represented or as close to fully represented as we can in Kent County at those subsequent conventions. So that's why you're allowed to then elevate after you've determined your county party leadership. Right. So this was 100% a power play outside of what the norm is, outside of what the precedent is, outside of what state law actually contemplates. Right. This was merely we need to do this because we see the writing on the wall. We don't want to lose power and we want to stack the deck before the new leadership takes place. Kind of like what just happened in the Senate. And we're all pissed off at Mitch McConnell for, right?
Right.
You got to respect the will of the electorate and let those new representatives come in and make the decisions for the body.
The ones that were elected by the citizens.
Hang on a second, please, Dave. Can you name who is here? Who is this right there?
Clark. Kathy Clark.
Kathy Clark. And who is this?
Vice chair. That's John Stout.
And who is this?
Liz Johnson.
And who is this lady right here?
That's Gail Schuling.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to play this a minute. So there's a couple of videos so everybody can see kind of what happened here. And I heard that somebody actually put their hands on you last night, Stephanie, as you were taping. So that would qualify as assault, I believe, when somebody puts their hands on you at a meeting. But let's listen to this a minute.
Point of information, how many delegates were credentialed tonight?
I can't give you that to you, but we will give it to you.
Could you get it right now?
How come we can't get it right now? Yeah, you know it. You should say it before. Okay, but somebody should have said it before.
We told everybody we checked in, we got a ballot. You should know how many ballots were issued.
Absolutely.
We need to know if they received a majority.
197 big mouth.
Can you repeat that, please?
197.
Thank you. So not a majority, correct?
Not a good look for her. Not a good look.
Oh, she's nasty. Wow.
Let's go here.
Donna, can you pause for just a second?
Explain what's happening here, please, Nick.
Hang on just 1 second. Regarding that other video, I wanted to know, so this was after, we took control of the floor. We adjourned the meeting. That was when they continued to proceed with the ballots and the counting. And they only had 63 ballots turned in when they announced the election results, right? So I wanted a recording of how many delegates were actually credentialed and seated at the meeting, which was 197, right? And they only had 63 people that said, we want any part of what you guys are trying to do right now.
So
right?
you got 63 communists that decided to stand with them and break the law, is what it sounds like.
I'm not going to call them communists, but you got 63 people that were committed to their will of trying to hold on to the power, right? But 63 out of 197, they're clearly a smaller minority, right? We had a 2/3 majority that said, we don't want any part of this. This isn't the way we do things. We're the Republican Party, the party of law and order. Let's follow the rules. Let's follow the laws, and let's conduct business properly based on what the voters have elected us to do. Right?
Okay, I'll give them a little bit of a pass and say maybe they were trying to do something right, a little misguided, but we'll give them a pass, sort of, kind of on this.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and play this one.
The chair's decision is overturned. You're not the chair, Dave. There's now a motion on the floor. You're not the chair, Dave. Who votes on the floor today? Everybody votes the same. All in favor? All those in favor? All in favor of Robert's chair.
All these people want Robert's rules.
Okay. Can you explain what's happening here?
Yeah, so I had made a motion that we adopt Robert's rules to be the governing authority, governing parliamentary authority for the convention, because there were no rules adopted before they went into the voting, and I was ruled out of order. So prior to this video, there was a motion made to appeal the ruling of the chair, which the chair also did not recognize. So again, going back to kind of what I said at the start, you can repeat yourself 3 times, and if the chair still doesn't recognize you, you can turn to the body and have the body vote. So the gentleman that is yelling at the beginning there with his hands, that is Dave DeShaw, who is a registered parliamentarian, very well versed in parliamentary authority, Robert's rules. He actually chaired the convention, the Michigan State Convention, just a few months ago, or back in August. So he is now, because the chair has not recognized the appealing of the ruling of the chair, and it's been said 3 times. He announces that the ruling of the chair was overruled, or the appeal is sustained. So the chair is overruled. And then he takes up the item of business, which is to adopt Robert's Rules of Order as the governing parliamentary authority for the meeting. And the body votes there, and we adopt Robert's Rules of Order to govern us for the duration of the convention.
Okay, I'm going to go to the next video.
Overturn the decision of the chair. Raise your tag. Stand up.
Okay.
So the videos are flip flop there. So this would be the predecessor of the previous video. So this is the vote to overrule the chair on his ruling of calling me out of order for my Robert's Rules motion. So the body voting there said, we do not believe that the chair is in order here. We want the member, myself, to be recognized and allow my motion to come to the floor. And we see an overwhelming majority there, again, in support of of rule and order, not chaos and tyrannical dictatorship.
Yeah, let's try that one.
But we've got it all on recording. We're a self-governing body. We took I motioned 3 times to overrule the ruling of the chair. He didn't recognize me. Therefore, standing in place, I'm able to call the vote of the body. I called the vote of the body.
And he said he wanted to appeal the chair 3 times.
Yeah, so
Okay.
more color to more video evidence of what I previously said. So.
Nick, if you guys followed Robert's rules, in that would mean that it would not have been legal or whatever to vote in these precinct delegates.
Yeah, if we would have followed Robert's Rules of Order, then things like prior notice become important, right? I talked about the fact that there was not proper notice in a timely fashion sent to all delegates. Robert's Rules contemplates that and says you have to have 10 days. You also then the body would have been able to determine the method of voting for filling vacancies if that's what they wanted to do. Or make a motion to not fill them, or a motion to amend the slate, right? And to Stephanie's point, it was literally, and I've got it here. We were given here's your ballot, right? And it's do you want to vote for this person? Kent County Republican Committee Special Convention. Grassroots Committee nomination report for election of precinct delegates. And you can check a box to elect all of them or check individual boxes. But we were also told that even if only one person turns in their sheet and all of those people only get one vote, then they're elected.
So this is normally, you're supposed to fill the vacant seats after the December convention. Which makes sense. Is that like a rule? Obviously, it's not a rule that they have to follow, or they think they don't have to follow.
Well, it is contemplated in Michigan compiled law, and it's also contemplated in Michigan Republican Party state party bylaws that say that you can fill the vacancies, but only after you have elected the new executive committee.
Which makes sense.
And look, I'm all for bringing on new delegates, right? I'm all for engaging more people. Like, we need to be the big tent party. We need to grow the party, not shrink the party. But there's a proper time to do it, right? And that proper time would have been, it could even be done at the December 3rd convention, but it has to be done after the election of the new executive committee takes place.
That makes sense.
Well, that's the problem. If we don't have order with things and we all start making up policies on the fly just to get certain things done, that's what we've seen with the Board of Elections, with Jonathan Brader, and some of the other things that have gone in the state, where they're just making up rules. If you start reading like the MCL and some of the executive orders that Gretchen Whitmer has done, you'll see that policy, that pattern that carries through. We've got to have rules that protect the rights of all people so that the votes count and that we're accurate and that we're not disenfranchising people. So I think that it was amazing that you guys stood up for this. And it was kind of a crazy outpouring of support from this. I mean, I think enough people were there. And it seemed like it was a little bit of a dividing line, too, on whether people are willing to win at all costs for what they think is right, or whether they're whether they're going to follow the process of, establishing candidates in America.
Absolutely. It did wonders for exposing what this group of 63 people, and it's a dwindling group, they are losing support, but what they are willing to do. You have to remember, this is the same group of people from Kent County as well as the 3rd District Party who have voted to completely take down Robert's Rules as the governing authority multiple times. They have voted to set rules aside so that they can bully members and remove members that have a differing viewpoint or might vote differently than they would. Questions are not accepted unless you agree with this group of people.
Yeah.
And you are removed if you feel otherwise by police. I have had the police remove me from meetings. I am a duly elected precinct delegate. They are willing to go to great lengths to try to push through their agenda.
And Stephanie, you said something there, and I just want to be fair. I don't want to make the assumption that the 63 people that stayed and voted last night, I can't confidently say that they knew what they were doing, right? We do have new delegates that were elected in August that don't understand precedent, that don't understand the rules, right? And there's a certain member at the leader of the faction that Donna knows who it is. We talked about it last night, but I'm not going to name it on the show.
Can I?
Sure, you can all you want.
Is Keith Hinkle leading that up?
It is, yep. And he recruits people that he can call and say, this is how I need you to vote tonight, without any question, right?
Which is absolutely backwards to the American process. The precinct delegates, this is what's wrong with our entire country right now, is it's collectivism and voting with the club. Right. And keeping everybody out that doesn't agree with what the party says. Now, I mean, this is some Nazi crap going on when that stuff happens. And because that's exactly how they did it in Nazi Germany. It was the party that was really the ruling class, that was a collectivism, right? Yeah. And it's backwards. In the United States of America, it's the people that determine how the precinct delegates should be voting who determine up. It's not down. And this is what you need to do. It is, what are the people in your precinct wanting you to do? Have you talked to them? Do you know what your neighbors want to do? Are you doing your job, or are you just taking orders from above? That's what we had the problem with the elections. And how many clerks, township supervisors, on and on, that I personally heard say, we take our orders from the state. That's what's happening. It's upside down, and we have to correct that. When I see it immediately, I'm checked out on it. And, I'm like, nope, not even gonna entertain this nonsense, because this is part of the cancer that has seeped into this nation to tear us down.
Yeah.
Nick, what kind of power do these Kent County GOP chair people, the leadership, have? What do they actually? What can they do that they care so much to do something like this about their position? Is it paid? Do they make money from it?
It's not paid. It's certainly
it's a popularity contest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's being part of the cool kids club.
Now, look, in theory, if you go back to how, what Donna just said, right, the precinct delegates are the foundational building block of the parties, right? And you're elected to represent the 1,500 or 2,000 voters in your precinct. So in theory, if the system is working as designed, right, you are out canvassing your neighbors and you're saying, how do you want me to vote at state convention? Hey, here's the list of people that are running. Here's their qualifications. Who would you like me to vote for, right? And then there's also the ability to hold accountable our elected officials through the party, right? Because you can do things like censure candidates. You can do things like withhold funding from candidates, right, that might not be following the platform. But really, the benefit of having the county party is you've got a platform and a megaphone that is able to communicate out with the voters in the county on issues, rally people if we've got, a call to action for, a piece of legislation or something going on at the county commission that, needs people to show up at and show, what the constituency feels about it, right? And how they would like their elected representatives to vote. And, I got in a bit of a tiffy early last year when we were looking at electing the new Kent County or the new state party leadership, right? And this is kind of where the breakdown between myself and the individual who Donna named, that I just won't speak his name. I said, he's out trying to convince the delegates to vote for a particular candidate, and I said, we've got this all wrong, right? The delegates need to be talking to their neighbors and finding out who they want, right? And then I hear, well, that's a waste of time. The neighbors don't care, right? Well, maybe they don't, because we've become complacent as an electorate, right, with how things are. But the change starts with us, right? And if we want to fix the system, we need to be out having those conversations with our neighbors in our precinct and educating them, right? Like, we have a duty to, as citizens, right, to the Constitution, and to educate people on, this is how it's meant to work. I know you have no idea what a precinct delegate is, but I'm your precinct delegate. This is my responsibilities, and I value your opinion, and I want you to be involved in the process, right?
Yeah.
And apparently, because I didn't want to go along with this cult mentality of, we're just going to get a bunch of delegates together and then have them vote the way we want them to, I was suddenly the black sheep, right? And it's, that, Donna, that's what resulted in, Tiffy's on your show with other people last year, right? So.
Yeah, well, and that's it's a real problem, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Is that the political parties in general have turned into popularity contests instead of a serious vetting process to who is the best candidate. They're protecting their little fiefdoms, and they're not hitting the target. And I would say that this is probably why we have so many disenfranchised voters out there, outside of the party, because, you look at some of this stuff, and how can anybody take this seriously? Honestly, when the conduct is not following any structure whatsoever, it's just, well, whatever we feel like doing today. And then, you can't guarantee that anybody's rights are being protected that way. It is just a popularity contest, and that's not okay.
I mean, my husband had to protect his wife last night physically.
I heard about that.
When we got into the car at the end of the night, he said, Steph, I don't want anything to do with this. He's a brand new delegate. And he said, this is not what we should all look at. The waste of time this was for hundreds of people. But I said, I'm not going to view it as a waste, because look at how many people's eyes were just opened to the tyranny that is going on. And sadly, there were 63 people, whether they were aware of what they were doing or if they were, they had their blinders on, but they followed along with that. And a lot of people's eyes were opened last night. And so I'm thankful for that. And I'm hopeful that through that, we will be able to have a turnover. You have to remember too, that Nick and I were part of this slate of people that were just, forced down people's throats as a slate a couple years ago. And I didn't feel right about it, but I was quiet about it because I thought I was alone. And then the more I talked to other people about it, I realized I'm not alone, and that, it felt wrong to just have this name on a list, and people were just being told, this is who you want, vote for her. And I said, never again. I do not want to be part of a slate ever again. And the more we spoke about that, the more we were silenced and eventually removed. So.
And I would just put a quick plug out there. If there's any of the 63 people that are listening to this live stream right now and have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm an open book. I'll have a conversation with anybody and help fill you in on the history. If you had your blinders on and were told to vote a certain way last night and you just did what you were told because you didn't know any better, I'll forgive you, right? Let's have a conversation.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about what's going on, and let's help educate you and other people before the December 3rd convention.
I think it's a very wonderful conciliatory way to put that. And, I think that my time in politics that I've been in for, just not all that long. I mean, when I was asked to run, I hadn't even been to a coffee because I hated everybody, because I thought the whole system was pretty well an embarrassment as an American. And I think there's a lot of people, though, that we're seeing that are actually infiltrators that really are, they are they're shit starters, for lack of a better way to put it. They're provocateurs. They're there to cause trouble. And so there's a mix of people that, like you said, are just good people. They see the problems, they're trying to help and such. And then there's straight up communists that are in there who I can pretty much guarantee you are getting either directed or paid by somebody to do what they're doing. Just like Antifa was, BLM is, every part of our society has been infiltrated. And we've got to remember to go back to the fact that you've got to be careful who you follow and who you listen to. And it's still your responsibility not to grab on people and have a little popularity contest, or this is my new best friend who's going to tell me everything I need to know. Because you don't know if that person is who they say they are. At the end of the day, we're still responsible for knowing the law, understanding the procedures. And if you take a position, I listened to somebody in Byron Township the other day that I was chewing his tail a little bit at a meeting. And he's like, well, we're just regular citizens. And I'm like, maybe so, but you got a job and you don't know your job. And so, like, if you step up for something like that, which is admirable, you got to be willing to talk to more than one person who may be controlling the message. Listen to people equally until you get to the answers that you have. And, so you stay out of the cliques and the ones that are trying to control the entire process through redirection, distraction, and whatever, because you might be sitting right next to somebody who is straight up a political activist that looks like a friend, but very much may not be, I think that's important. So I appreciate you guys coming forward and talking about this, and really, really being so healing about what happened last night, as well as pointing out the truth, and hopefully all Americans. At the end of the day, what the Republican Party does, what the Democrat Party does, absolutely affects all of us. And once you get elected or you're in that position, you should be representing all people in that position, and not just being a team member that only serves the team. So we're all Americans first and foremost and need to come together. So,
and Donna, in closing, I'd just like to say, look, this battle is not over, right? You've got 100 and I don't have the number again, but you've got 130 whatever people, 134 people that will not accept the results of the 63 from last night, right? So when we go into the December 3rd convention, we fully anticipate that the county party leadership is going to try and seat these 63 or these 55 newly elected delegates. So we have some recourse. We're kind of pulling the troops together today and kind of regrouping on what our strategy is going into that. But this is the battle's not over. In some ways, it's really just beginning. But we'll certainly be in touch with you and come back on the show as things progress. If you're willing to have us.
Well, absolutely. It's like I give a voice to anybody that has really been silenced, and I do this all for free. So I mean, it's not like I just want the truth for our state. That's it. No matter which way the truth comes down, and also the respect for each and every individual out there for their ability to have, in a lawful manner, to have their rights violated. That's where we need to go with all of this. Not just because we want it to go in a direction, but because we're being fair and equal and honest on what we're doing. And I just can't. I absolutely hate dishonesty and manipulation. No tolerance, zero tolerance for it. So you're always welcome to come back on here. And I think this would be a really good thing for you to come on more often, just to help educate people so that they're not going in blind on because what I've seen is that both of you have a really good grasp on procedure, and that's important.
Nick, is there anyone that can hold them accountable for what they've done? Is there the Michigan GOP or
Potentially, look, there's you always want to be careful when you set a precedence of getting the state party involved in county party business, right?
Right.
You'd want to try to avoid that at all costs because it sets a bad precedent. Counties are supposed to be autonomous, right? The party is built from the ground up, right? Precinct delegate all the way up to the RNC chair, right? And the different levels within that. So there are avenues that we're exploring. There's some people from state party that have offered some help for us. Whether they're going to contemplate it as a body or not is kind of up for debate. But Dave DeShaw, the parliamentarian, he is a precinct delegate here in Kent County. He's been well connected within the party for a number of years. We'll be meeting with him and some others to really determine what our best course of action is going forward. There's anything from, we just try and make our arguments at December 3rd all the way up to, we go into a courtroom and litigate it, which also certainly comes with cost and other things where, do you want the courts determining how a private political organization runs? Probably not, right? But those are the things that we have to weigh out over the next couple of days. And we all kind of want to take a breath. And when Donna was like, "Hey, you want to come on the show?" I was like, "I kind of want to relax for a day," but here I am, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity. But we're going to take some breathers, gather the troops together, and come up with our next battle plan, I guess.
Well, that's good. And good to have some good information out there and get everybody pulling together. That's what this entire state needs. We need to be pulling together and putting our differences aside, going back to the law or the process, because our nation is a nation of laws, not men.
Yeah. Being
that there's structures, there's a way to keep this nation on the rails, and when we get into the popularity contest, it just falls apart.
Well, and look, I'll just the last thing I got to say is I'm a huge fan of Reagan's 80% rule, right? The person that agrees with me 80% of the time is 80% my friend and ally, not 20% my traitor or 20% a traitor. So we got to come together, like you said, set those differences aside, focus on the areas where we do align together, unite together behind those principles, and start to work together to take our country back, right?
Yeah, I love that.
Amen.
There you go. Well, thanks for coming on. You're welcome anytime. Just give me a call and I will make sure that we have space for you guys and hopefully get this county pulling in the right direction right now, because it's kind of not. And so that would be a great thing. So thank you for coming on today. And
thank you, Donna.
You bet. You have a wonderful rest of the day. And thank you for everybody out there that's watching from this within the situation. I'm watching the numbers and watching what's going on behind the scenes. So I'm sure you got lots of buddies out there watching, and you guys stand tough together. And I'm going to go ahead and bring on Karen and Ralph, and we're going to get it on to Off the Grid. So you guys have a great day today.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye. You bet. Bye-bye. All right. And here we are back to us again, Friday morning and Off the Grid. And went a little longer than I thought it was going to go, but that's okay. I think that's important to talk about. I think all of us out there are watching the political parties with a great deal of skepticism and such, because of what we've seen over the last few years. And I think that what's wonderful is watching how many patriots have stepped forward to try to fix a clearly broken system. It is clearly broken, and very, very disturbing, very disturbing. And
I have to applaud everyone involved in standing up against authoritarianism, even on a small local level. That's incredibly important to stand up to that before it gets to levels above that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it would be nice if everybody could act as statesmen rather than going into crazy world. I mean, as much as we hear about the left going and acting crazy and doing all this crazy stuff, I've seen the same stuff on both sides. And it comes down to holding on to your own ideas and wanting things to go your own way too much. then you gotta sometimes let go of certain things and pick your battles so that it doesn't all have to be one way. Does that make sense?
Yep.
You don't get along that way. What say you, Karen? You've been nice and quiet there. What's happening? No deers this morning. You're supposed to be out hunting.
Yeah. Well, my girl's my priority today. This afternoon, if all goes well, I'll be out hunting. I'm listening, and I have.
So I'm praying for Bambi right now.
I'm praying to get some meat in the canning jars. That's what I'm praying for.
There you go.
Listening to this, man, it sounds kind of familiar to me. I got thoughts. I went through the same kind of thing that they were describing with my GOP when I jumped in as a delegate in the fall, and there was a slate, and a few people knew who I was and could vouch for me, but otherwise nobody cared to ask me any questions and know who I was. I don't recall any interview process. And they just accepted that. And I never gave an oath or anything like that. I was just in. And within a year, I was out, because the next convention I saw what was happening with the electronic process of voting was to very much be doubted. Everybody was just disenfranchised, disappointed, disgusted. And I just didn't see. I saw what you're seeing. There are people who want to get things done, and other people that don't know what they're doing. Delegates. I didn't do a delegate's job because nobody ever really trained me, and I was allowed to not do what a delegate is actually supposed to do. So I was participating in the meetings and so on, but I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. And neither was anybody else in the party. But it was the sham. That's why I started calling it a shelection process. Mm-hmm. Sham elections. If you are telling other people how they are to vote at the delegate level, then you are not grassroots. You are not Republican. You are Democratic. And what they were describing is a dictatorship, a tyrannical one at that. Mm-hmm. The way they handled that meeting, I've seen done, which is one reason why I'm not in the assembly anymore. Now, I was able to defeat the process that was attempted because I spoke up for due process. It took a little bit of time and effort, but when there was a attempt at getting something done that was wrong, some people said, let's just vote. And I said, there should not be a vote because this is wrong. You don't have a vote on an improper process. And the next month, enough people believed and recognized what I was saying that we turned it around. But man, it's a lot of work. And when you have people who are really invested in a clique within an organization instead of what is best for the country, due process, and those foundational principles, you cannot be successful. And it almost makes me wonder if Kent County could, and people might not like me even suggesting this, but I'm just wondering if the people of a county could kick out a party or the whole party system as a public, could they determine we don't want this here because of this nonsense, wasting people's time? Yeah. And it's very discouraging. Maybe they can get a handle on this and make some positive.
Well, my biggest concern is that there's so much infiltration.
Yes.
In these groups, and it's like, and I hate to say it, but people are so naive on the fact that they know somebody and they're a good person and yes. This, that, and the other thing. But if you watch what they do, and then you start doing, I don't know, some checks and such. I mean, I actually worked with a PI for a little while there, and I said I've got some questions on people, and we dug into people because I want to know who I'm talking to. Not only did I do my own research, but we were looking for criminality. And when you start seeing like aliases behind people, and the average person would never even think, wow, is this person who they say they are? we were finding aliases and lots of them. And that should be really, concerning to everyone. And like right now, I know that they're trying to do this, you got to be able to put $20,000 up to run for certain offices. And I'm like, okay, as a CEO, I'm looking at this going, are you kidding me? This is pay to play.
Yep.
You cannot do this. This is a pay to play scheme. And it is in order to keep out a segment. It's very discriminatory. And it's in order to keep a certain segment out. And like, I am completely convinced that this money nonsense in all the political parties and in our politics is the death of this nation. It's absolutely the death of this nation, because I believe, it is my sincere belief, that anyone should be able to run for president, governor, any office. But right now, it's like when I ran in 2022, they came right out and told me, you're going to have to raise $52 million even to be taken seriously. And I'm like, well, first of all, because I actually have ethics, I'm not going to take the PAC money. I'm not going to take dark money, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going to do that way, right? And I think the one thing that I realized is that really what failed was the Michigan population is what failed, because they really want to go to, and I know that Ralph, you and I had a huge discussion about this morning. Most people are, I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it, a little bit on the lazy side. Yep. And if somebody can tell them what to do so they don't have to think, they don't have to take responsibility for it, they will sit back and let somebody tell them what to do, even if it takes them right down the road to hell.
Outsource their brains.
Outsource their brains.
Yep.
And that is also why I'm completely against the endorsement process. I only accepted one real endorsement, and that was from General Flynn, because I know him and he's a friend. That is it.
Well, I endorsed you.
Let's just say a national endorsement. I had friends that were endorsing me. I'll put it there. But it was the people that I knew, and I didn't go out looking for endorsements. I didn't go say, go through all the hoops and answer the questions. And they were trying to get me to do these questions, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to answer your questions to have a group support, because it's anti-American. It really is.
But if you don't have
special interest groups, and it allows people to not do their duty as an American, to get to know these candidates, to call them, to look into their backgrounds, to find out who they're actually voting for, or did you just vote in a cartel of protected interest?
But if you don't have some kind of a financial barrier, then how do you keep out all the people that are not backed by BlackRock?
Bingo, right there. You hit that right on the head. And that is exactly it, because it's the money. In the state of Michigan, we have about 22 oligarch families that are literally buying the elections. And all you got to do is look at what happened with DeVos and Tudor Dixon. Tudor Dixon was a DeVos candidate. They put Tudor Dixon out. They rolled her out at RDV with I think it was Oprah, and and we all know what the hell is going on with Oprah with the child trafficking and that kind of nonsense with John of God. And then they rolled her out there. As soon as she won the primary, DeVos has yanked the money. Because why? Because they always wanted to keep the power structure the same. They are not interested in your opinion. Not at all. It's the same kind of cartel crap of protecting people that's been going on for years. It's disgusting. But Stephanie sent this, and this is what happened with her getting hands laid on her at this convention. It appears to me that most of the Republican events, there's going to be kicking, slapping, throwing against the doors, and that sort of thing in the state of Michigan. It's nonsense.
The woman filming this doesn't have permission for my... Don't you touch my wife or so. Don't you touch Get your fucking hand off of her. I told her she doesn't have permission. Civil. I don't care. We're documenting everything. We're not doing You hit me. You hit me yesterday. Yeah.
That was what happened last night. So yes, they just go on and they do crazy crap like this, and it's shameful. It should be shameful to all of us that these parties that we're voting for that are selecting our candidates, you know, you heard what they were doing, just going and telling the delegates who to vote with. I mean, I got to say hats off to Nick and Stephanie and the people that stood with them for actually taking control of that convention and defending the people. I thought it was kind of extraordinary, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, bravo. I mean, it starts with the people. So sorry this kind of went a little longer. We didn't get to talk about off the grid.
Yeah.
You know, I knew off the grid.
Okay. That's okay. This was important.
I bought 24 more quarts of honey, and I had 2 of my hives fail.
How did they fail?
I was really sad about this, and I'm not exactly sure. We're trying to figure it out, but you know what? I've got the 3 hives, so I still have the 1, and I'm still going to add 4 more next year. So we'll be up and running again next year. We're going to see if the 1 makes it through the winter. It's pretty strong right now, but we'll see. But yeah, something happened, and the next thing you know, we've got like robber bees in there and crap, and it's like all of them are gone out of the 2 hives. So we're gonna have to figure out what happened, but that's okay. So we'll endeavor to persevere. We'll get new bees next year and restart them.
It was the possum.
It was that communist possum that stood in front of it, snacking on my bees as they came out of the hive.
It was the
You
bear.
know what I thought was really, really funny? You and I had 2 very different perspectives on the squirrel and the raccoon story. But you were so upset about the squirrel and the raccoon, and then you're like, that possum's gonna go.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like first day of hunting season here. I had a friend following me the car. I stopped the car when I saw the little communist marauder sitting on my beehive. And I'm like, do you have a pew pew on you? And he's like, yes, I do. I'm like, take him out. he must have smelled the intention, and he took off in the woods. So he lived to fight another day, and hopefully got smart enough not to go and snack on my bees.
What do you guys think about all of the alien UFO, UAP stuff that's just totally permeating the mainstream and the regular news now?
You know
No
what?
matter how much of it is real, I think a lot of it's a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go.
Did you have it on your bingo card for this month, though? Let's ask that question.
Yeah, that's it's just an odd thing to be coming up right now, I guess.
Oh, they've been hinting at it coming for a while. It doesn't surprise me that people are talking about it. I haven't heard anything new about it, but maybe I just kind of tune it out because it's always like, are they going to talk about JFK? Well, they might talk about JFK, and that conversation is perpetual.
Yeah, the Epstein list, right?
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I actually know several people that absolutely swear that they actually have seen them. And one's a pilot.
We've seen things. We've seen things in the sky that are just unexplainable. Many things.
You know, who knows? You know, it's like who knows? But
and
you know,
how much of it is secret projects of our own government versus how much of it is not explainable through that versus how much of it is just complete fabrication nonsense that's put out there to distract everybody.
Well, look at what happened with FEMA up there in Wirt Smith Air Base. And I'm going to give you my opinion on this right now. You know, 350 trailers are going to Wirt Smith airspace. So I start looking at the maps going, okay, I've run field offices. This is ridiculous. There's no way an hour and a half away that they're protecting 6 counties way the heck up there by Alpena and Nanook land on Lake Huron. It's absurd, right? And so then the guy on the council is reading a paper, 350 semis are going to be parked here from FEMA to do disaster relief. And everybody loses their mind when he says it, right? And then the next thing you know, FEMA comes out and says, he had bad information. It's wrong. Well, I want to know, what the hell was he reading? He was literally reading this on a statement. And so kind of looks like FEMA was making him a little bit of a scapegoat. And here's a question. Were they testing to see whether the American population was ready to step up, call them out and say, get the hell out of our state, FEMA. We don't want you here. First of all, you're an unconstitutional agency, and through Norton versus Shelby County, you don't exist, and you have no right to be in this state. If we had a decent governor, they would have started, asserting the borders and saying, guess what? Michigan has now just become a border state. We will protect our borders. And all of these 3-letter agencies, get out. You don't belong here. And you cross the border, and guess what? We're gonna arrest you at the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And treat you like the invading army, which you are, which they should be treated as. This is exactly, kick them all out, make them go earn a living like the rest of us do, instead of just through coercion, threat, and extortion. Every one of them is guilty of it. And I got to tell you, I know Tom Holman, and he is by far, I've got a lot of questions on the Trump picks right now, but I'll give you my opinion on that too. I know Tom Holman, he is going to go beast level on that border. I love him. Hands down, the best appointment that the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, the greatest president in the history of America, has made is Tom Holman. Now, the rest of them, I've got some serious questions, but one thing we know is that President Trump does not make the best endorsements. In fact, his endorsements suck, and I've said that since the beginning. And he is absolutely brilliant. So what is he doing here? He's not making a mistake. I don't care what anybody says. Oh, he's got bad advisors.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that is such a stupid statement.
I never believed that.
I don't believe that either. That's a dumb statement. That's a low IQ statement going on right there, pushed by probably a political activist. He knows what's going on. He's also got good advisors. He's got people like Kash Patel, who also I know, and he's got some good advisors around him. He's not going to be overwhelmed with just the bad ones, right? There's a mix going on there. My guess is that what's happening here is that he is appointing people. And think about this as if it was a strategy. What if he's appointing people and say they vacate their position to accept a position for him, and then he turns around and he fires them after he gets good people in place? I mean, we're not talking playing checkers here. This is more than 5D chess. This is like 1,000D chess that's going on. And so, never take things as they appear, and get yourself all bent out of shape over nothing. Just sit back and watch this and realize that at the end of the day, it is in fact God who is in control, and there is a plan, and it would be his plan. And so, we don't have to go crazy on this, but I've got my guests backstage right now, guys, and sorry that this went in a little bit different direction, but I thought we needed to address this today. So I'll give you each 30 seconds, and then we're going to go to Idaho, Health Freedom Idaho, and an Idaho Extremist. That's how he was billed to me. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Which is my favorite people, right?
Oh,
30 seconds. David, Karen, and Ralph.
awful quiet out there. Keep an eye on the skies.
Karen.
David believes in aliens now. That's what he's talking about, right? I struggle with this thing like the GOP. I just continue to uphold the concept of find your role to play. I mean, there are people who have to learn what they have to learn from within the GOP. On the other hand, I have a theory that, why try to clean up something while you're standing in a swamp, because you can't do it while you're in there. So, there are people like me who start the way I did and then find that that's not going to work for me. I don't want to be a part of that, and find something else where they can be a better influence. So everybody's got a role to play. Find it and do the best you can from within that which seems best for you. And if that's within a GOP, go for it. Do it 100%. See what you can learn in that process, even if it fails. And when things fail, you just have to been there, done that. You just have to say, well, what did I learn? Was it worth my time and effort? What can I do now? And if you need to take a break in the middle, do that too, because I've been there too.
Serve God first. That's the first calling. Okay, Ralph.
I would say just kind of keep an eye on the internet. We've been seeing an awful lot of issues with, I think at this point, Comcast, T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon have all had issues in the last week. And last night we were seeing traffic going through Chicago dropping about 50% of our traffic. So Yeah, there's some issues going on with infrastructure right now.
And things are disappearing like in a black hole. It started out a few weeks ago with the Internet Archive, just so everybody knows. Save offline. Make sure you've got your backup copies and such, because this thing could just absolutely go flatline, and it wouldn't take too much to make it do so.
Yep. Yeah. Preserve records yourself. Don't trust somebody else to do it. Don't trust the service.
It's in a cloud. A cloud can rain. A cloud can be gone. A cloud can be absolutely vaporized. So with that said, I'm going to go to our little bit of a 30-second break, and I'll be right back on with Misty, Sarah, and David. And I'm going to leave you on too, Dr. David, because you're good. You're a good guy to have around when we're talking about health. So I'll be right back. Good morning and welcome to the second hour of Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it is the 15th day of November 2024, first day of deer hunting season, gun season in Michigan, and I'm wishing well for the hunters and the deer. So here we go. The next hour here at 10 o'clock hour, we have Health Freedom Ohio with Miste Karlfeldt, Sarah Clendenon, David Pettinger. Health Freedom of Idaho was created to protect our access to and preserve our freedoms in regard to the health care of our choice. We are a concerned group of citizens, professionals, and families in Idaho interested in protecting Idaho's health freedom. Man, that is going to resonate with everybody here in Michigan after what Gretsch the Wretch did here with shutting our state down. And so I'm going to bring everybody in. Good morning, everybody. How you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to Brandenburg News Network. It sounds like you guys got a lot of stuff going on out there.
Hey, Donna, I have a surprise for you. Dr. Judy Mikovits is visiting me.
Wow.
Hi,
Donna.
How are you?
I'm ready to make America healthy again, that's for sure.
That's awesome. I remember meeting you. I think the last time I met you was down in Florida. And it was a very, very small, very nice little event we went to. I remember that very well. And you have actually been a huge hero of mine for many, many years. And you were talking with Stephanie Senoff,
right,
for a while. And I watched you guys for years and appreciate everything you've done and all the persecution you've gone through for this nation. And I just got to tell you, you're like one of the greatest patriots I think that has been in this century. It's that you're amazing.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I was born in Flint, Michigan, and I was up there last month fighting with Callie Means and Bonnie Hari there at Battle Creek with my good friends Rich Orley and Dr. Basheen Baker there in Central Michigan with that Institute for Healing. So we're excited about making Michigan healthy again as well.
I love that. We need kind of a lot of help here. I'm going to tell you what, there's no two ways about it. Gretchen Whitmer, as well as the entire legislature, weaponized. They didn't follow the process. It wasn't one of them. It was the whole mess of them that wrecked this state during COVID and some of the other things that went on. And there was a bunch of us that were still screaming, from the rooftops what was going on. And I think that a lot of the conditioning or the educating you did for years before that had some of us ahead of the curve just a little bit.
Yeah, and really to get back to the curve because Bobby Kennedy, of course, saw that in 19, and so now being head of HHS. I think he'll put Stephanie Seneff in charge of the EPA. Of the FDA, and she'll rip all those toxins out of there. Toxic legacy of glyphosate. Yes. And
I love that guy. He's so nice. So nice and so
It'll be fun.
effective, you know.
Well, I won't ruin the rest of your talk. I'll just hang out and listen.
Oh, no.
No, you should just stay here and join us. This was like
Since 2018, we were here, and those slides still matter. Those talks still matter. I show them over and over again, and I never change the font, so we always know where it came from right here.
That's right.
As a doctor, you woke me up to the vaccines, many, many years ago. I can't say my colleagues, felt the same way, but everything you said made complete sense, especially about the simian viruses and stuff contaminating these vaccines.
Yeah,
you were the first to bring it to the public, and gosh, I wish more doctors listened to you.
They will now.
That's right.
Clearly.
And they'll love it too, because people heal.
Yeah, that's right.
With food.
Yeah.
So where do you guys want to go with this today? Because so Brandenburg News Network doesn't have much of a form actually. I never talk to people before we get on, and I just say, Jesus, take the wheel, and then we go in whatever direction he wants to go. So what would you like to talk about, and who would like to start?
Well, I want to explain a little bit here. So Sarah and I do Health Freedom Idaho together, and David and I do Miste for Liberty together. So you actually have a bigger group here today. So anyway, we focus on different things, but it's really all things liberty, right? And bodily autonomy, owning your own self, and being in charge of your own family, being in charge of your own children. The government doesn't raise our children. CPS happens to be kind of my soapbox. So happy to talk about that anytime.
That's great. The largest human trafficking organization on the planet. And, well, maybe Wonderland pedophile lands, but you know what I mean? It's like, it is institutional child trafficking in the United States of America.
Well, they're losing 55 of our children per day. 55 of our children are lost from foster care per day.
That's crazy.
We have to stop funding the stealing of our children and the destroying of our families. We have to stop it.
Has Trump put anyone in charge of that administration yet? From his administration?
No, that would be under HHS, right? And so that would be under HHS. So I've been really messaging on X and saying, hey, we've got to end ASFA and CAPTA, which funds the stealing of our children and human trafficking with our children. So hopefully he'll hear me. I'm shouting.
Someone's going to hear you.
So tell me about what you're currently doing right now.
Well, CPS is always my focus, literally every day of my life. And even here in Idaho, people would be surprised that I get 2 and 3 phone calls per week of children being stolen by CPS here in Idaho. And they get it wrong, like 80-something% of the time. They take the children and ask questions later. And then they go, oh, well, I guess we didn't need to take this child or children. And so then they return them. So I'm always working on that. But I know David and I just went through Trump's appointments. So that's also fresh on our minds.
Very cool. Who wants to go next? We're just, talk about what's on your mind.
Ladies first, Sarah, take it away.
So I'm typically the one that kind of works on legislation for Health Freedom Idaho. And so over the years, Miste and I have worked on many issues. We focused for a long time on the vaccine exemptions in Idaho. And so right now I'm actually working on a bill with a legislator about discrimination based on vaccine status, which is something that we started before COVID. Actually, we had a bill back in the 2019 and 2020 sessions trying to protect our healthcare workers. We didn't know COVID was coming, of course, but we knew that something was coming down the line eventually where they were going to, attempt to use our vaccine status against people and hold our jobs and our kids and our everything over our head. So we started working on it way back then. Of course, back then we were told we were crazy, get out of here. We don't want to hear from you. Now, of course, we hear a little differently, thankfully, which is kind of the silver lining of COVID is that a lot of people have woken up and are now saying, wow, you were right. And how do we stop this? So again, we have a vaccine discrimination bill. We are modeling it after a Montana statute. So I've been working with a legislator on that recently, getting ready for the legislative session that starts in January.
It sounds like you guys are like really super busy and active on many levels. I'm going to bring your website up here a minute. Let's see. We've got, ta-da. So healthfreedomidaho.com. And looks like you've got a lot of resources on here and such.
Yeah, Donna, can you do me a favor and search CPS
within this?
In the search bar, yep. I want everybody to have access to this. So scroll down. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, right there. The corrupt business of CPS. This is a hands-on helpful material and guide that's within this that people can have at their door if they want to know what to do if CPS comes to their door. So if anybody's concerned about CPS coming to their door, this is your resource. And within it, there's right there that PDF, CPS Knox free download. People can download that, have it right next to their door, be prepared, prepare your children, prepare your spouse on what to do if CPS comes to your door. I've really tried to put together the most comprehensive resource around on that.
Well, I can't even imagine. I had Nina Rodriguez on here, and I cannot even imagine the trauma that these families and these children are going through. I know the Hamners, and we were doing some work to try to bring that child kidnapping in Tennessee to light, and what happened with her. It's absolutely horrific. And unfortunately, there's signs that she was sexually trafficked by the people that were in charge, and it's too bad. But these stories need to be brought forward, absolutely. So tell us some stories about what's been going on out there, if you can.
Oh, sure. One of the ones I was thinking of when you're talking about how it destroys families is there was an intact family, a loving family, 3 kids. The neighbor, because in Idaho everybody is a mandatory reporter. So the neighbor took it upon herself as a mandatory reporter to call CPS and say, hey, these kids are playing outside too much. I think they're outside too much. So I think that's neglectful, right? And then they have to investigate every case. So they come to this house and knock on the door, and the mom, not knowing better, lets them into her home. You've already given up your rights because you're bringing them into your home. And now they start looking around, right? And they're noting and this is on the police report, dishes in the sink, laundry on the sofa. They take all 3 kids, okay? And even though sexual abuse is not even on the table, not even a question, they go ahead and do a full examination of all the children, even a 9-year-old little girl without her mom and dad. She happens to have epilepsy, has the worst seizure. She tells her daddy later, I had the worst seizure, daddy, and they had to give me a shot in my bum. Okay, that takes 9 months to get this family back together. But in the meantime, now mom and dad are divorcing, and the 12-year-old, if I remember right, is now suicidal. So the family's destroyed. Mom and dad now live in 2 separate states. Kids are, you're trying to put your kids back together from this trauma. That's just that's like a very common case, a very common scenario that I get a call with. It's not like, they're actually being abused. They get it wrong 80-something% of the time.
Are they allowed to examine a child without parental consent?
They totally do it. And you know what's worse? They sent daddy the bill.
Oh, you got to be kidding me.
That's how I found out.
Wow. And they injected her. Do you guys know what she was injected with?
Well, so she had to have a shot because of her seizure was so bad that they had to give her a shot. Now, there are plenty of stories, and people ask me this all the time, of children being vaccinated without parental consent. And I just had a phone call yesterday, 2 hours long, with a mom who'd had her children stolen by CPS in Idaho. And yeah, they just vaccinated all of her kids with a flu shot who've never had a vaccine before, and putting them on ADD medication, which she's adamantly against and has no control.
I hope these people know that someday they're probably going to be charged with murder when we get the right people in office.
It can't be soon enough for me.
Seriously, right? Unbelievable. David, what are you working on right now?
Well, so my job in this whole scheme of things is really to hold our elected to account. So I guess I am called to make them uncomfortable in public settings. I'm called to follow the court cases that they're trying to keep under wraps with their statist media. So currently we're tracking different things through the Idaho Supreme Court. We're tracking different things at the county level here in Ada County as well, where we all reside. So I am probably probably one of the least favorite of the elected when I show up with a camera, and also if we show up to push against, the force of the state, especially during the COVID mandates. So here in Idaho, we have an open meeting law, and I don't know if you have an open meeting law there in Michigan or not, but they went ahead and put police forces out to close down the different health district meetings. And so large groups of us pushed back against these, health district mandates and things. And so we were on the front lines, and pushing against the state in those mandates. They were breaking the law. And so we were trying to get back to a legal, lawful state here in the state of Idaho. So really it is pushing back and making them uncomfortable. And I've been doing that ever since they started closing down businesses and closing down churches. And prior to that, it was a little bit more border focused. I love your Tom Homan, I guess, recommendation on that. And I love the fact that you know him as well, because I was excited about that particular nomination. Yeah, so that's great. I was border hawking back when Obama was doing his executive orders. So I helped organize a protest when Obama and Valerie Jarrett drove into Boise State University. And so online, we had been given by some different people their route of what they would take, the route that they would drive with their motorcade into Boise State University. So we were some of the only people that didn't welcome, the President of the United States, Barack Hussein Obama.
Barry, AKA Barry Satoro, the Kenyan.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, nice.
Isn't that fun?
Nice, yes.
I got to show you something else I posted here. Let's see. It's going to take me just a minute to find it. I got some other things I posted here, but I thought this was pretty funny. Oh, must have been before that. Just a minute. We'll get it. I hope I have it on this channel. I've got several different channels. No, it's on my Twitter channel, so we'll have to go back and find it there. I've got a wonderful picture of here. Let me go ahead and continue to talk, and I'll put this picture up because this is really fun. You'll get a bang out of this.
Yeah, so the border has been a big issue of interest for myself. I went through a big Breitbart border, investigative search during the time that Obama was coming out with all these executive orders. And that really is what kind of got me into political interest, because I had this constitutional base of, Idaho historically was very classic conservative. And so I grew up, like I talked about, growing up under a rock. Legitimately, my mother was a nun before she left the convent. And so I grew up in just a really classic conservative Catholic family. My mother left the convent. My dad, scored. Obviously, a lady just leaves the convent, marry her right up, right? So anyhow, so I come from this classic conservatism. And then to see the things that were happening on the border, I always grew up thought that we were a safe, secure nation. And then to hear that we don't have borders was one of the most shocking things that I'd ever learned in my life. I was like, who are these people? And the problem that we have in Idaho that we're tracking as well is our dairy industry, which is absolutely connected to our governor and the Western Governors Association. I don't know if you follow that organization or not, but the Western Governors Association is just another quasi-level United Nations kind of satellite. And they take the policy from the UN, and then they go ahead and they put it into practice in all the Western states. I think it's 22 that are in the Western Governors Association. And so people are always going, oh, well, we just need to focus, locally. Your local laws are based upon United Nations policy. They simply satellite that over. Our governors that elected or selected or whatever are simply taking that policy and then laying it out for us, and everyone's going, oh my gosh, focus local. But it's like, no, you need to focus on what's going on at COP29 today. Alex Newman is over there right now getting us some interviews and information, not us personally, for his own organization, but he's getting the information. COP29 and the United Nations are devising our policy on our water. Have you noticed all the invasive species stuff nationwide? Quagga mussels, zebra mussels, everything is going invasive species. My current opinion on this is they want to shut our waterways off to us.
Yeah.
They're not just going to say you don't have access to your waterways. They're going to say you can't go down there. We have an invasive species. They've shut down our Snake River in Idaho right now because of quagga mussels. They've killed, and this is in mainstream media or corporate media, they've killed 7 tons of fish by making this chemical chelated nitrix administration into the Snake River to try to kill this minuscule, like little mussel snail. And people can't even go down there. We are the first in the nation. We're the first in North America to administer this test. And our governor allowed this with all the federal agencies to come in and poison our water. And that Snake River aquifer is one of the largest aquifers in the nation. And that feeds our entire state for all of our agriculture. So they're ultimately just beginning a poisoning process to cut off water, nationwide.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the communist MO, is to grab the supply lines as well as the food. I mean, that's what they did with the Bolsheviks did a long time ago. So I mean that is their MO. I wanted to show you this picture real quick here. So there you go. Tom Holman, he's going to go absolutely Hulk nuts on the border. Go get him, Tom. Don't negotiate with these
That's
people.
right.
Let's get her done.
Yeah, that's great. And I don't want to take up all the ladies' time, so we can jump into some other health freedom stuff if you want. But the border is a huge issue. We have refugee crime. We have illegal alien crime. Our big ag dairies claim that they can't operate without foreign workers, which I disagree with. But they have a huge illegal alien population working for them. It's cheap. They get, larger profits. These guys have been loaded for decades, and they don't want to lose their income margins, their profit margins. So it's going to be a big fight in Idaho. They've been trying to get a legal alien driver's license for some time through our legislature, and so we've been fighting against that because they want these guys to be able to deliver the products and all the ag products throughout the state. But we're not having it. So we're excited. I hope Tom Holman does his job, and I hope that Kristi Noem as well backs him up and everything that he's going to do at the Department of Homeland Security. And maybe we can talk a little bit. What is your take on these recess appointments? Do you think all of these appointments are going to get rammed through the Senate when they go into recess over the holidays? Or do you think that they're going to go through a confirmation process?
I think that there's a lot going on right now, and that everything we're seeing, we need to sit back and go, well, and watch what's happening a little bit. Because I guess I do feel that there maybe is a little bit of strategy there, because I like the Tom Holman appointment a lot. The rest of them, I am sitting back and going, not sure that's the best place for this person, but okay, he's sitting in the driver's seat, and I'm going to back what he does, and I'm not going to complain about it. But what I'm wondering is on some of them that I do have some questions about, if he is going to put go forward with that, they resign, he puts them in, and then fire them to take over like the lower seats, and that's very possible. And so I just don't think that things are ever as they appear. And so right now, just watch the greatest president in the history of the United States work through this and see where this is going to lead to. And I think there's going to be some real surprising outcomes to it. I think we're going to see some very, very large changes. Whether I'm more concerned also on if we're going to make it to the inauguration without some black swan event or something. I mean, we can all look at all of this and lots of conjecture on which way this is going to go. We just don't know. But I think my biggest thing is everybody needs to be praying to God right now that he protects and gives us favor upon America as we're being, turned around from this very evil system that's been in place. And it's all about the kids, in my opinion. They're, going after the kids, and the core issue here is, I'm just saying right now, anybody that's in CPS, this is probably, your last warning to turn around and leave what you're doing right now or be convicted with all of them, because I think this whole thing is going to go down.
So the one thing that I've learned from Miste and Sarah through Health Freedom Idaho, I didn't realize that CPS was a for-profit agency. And so that was mind-blowing to me. And maybe Miste can talk about that for-profit aspect.
Aren't they getting like $1 million a child that they take? That's what I've heard, is that they're getting as much as $1 million per child to kidnap them from families.
So it depends, and it's going to vary state to state as far as like how long they can keep them before they adopt them out. And then they get a bonus when they adopt them out. So that there's this incentivization to rehome them from their actual family to another family, because you get this bonus. And then the bonus varies depending on if they have any ailments, any disabilities, what color they are, what sex they are. That the bonus varies. So the incentivization varies, which is really interesting. And yeah, they do. It's for profit. So if you think about it, like I also own a property management company. I have to have a certain amount of doors to pay my rent, to pay my employees, right? Well, in CPS, you have to have a certain amount of children, right? So there's a quota. I have to have X amount of children in the system in order to pay my employees and my rent and keep my lights on. So that's where we're at with CPS. Also, it comes from our Title 4E funding, which is our Social Security money. So when you hear, we're not going to have Social Security, when we retire, well, why is that? Well, it could be because we're using that money to steal and rehome our children.
Kidnapping. It's like institutional kidnapping.
It is. And trafficking.
Yeah, unbelievable how backwards everything is right now. So here's a question. Are they tracking? Do they have any idea where these kids are going and what's happening to them? Is anybody really looking into this? Because, I've heard probably some of the worst stories out there. I'm sure a lot of us who have been in the Anon world and that are researchers have hit pretty close to the bottom of the barrel of knowledge on what's really going on here. Is there anybody that is actually tracking this? And
so here's what happens is when they're lost in the system, they say for privacy reasons that they can't let the community know they're missing. Like you'll never see a foster child's poster on a tree or something like this child is missing, right? Because they say for privacy reasons, we can't say that because they're in foster care. So they're not going to fight for a missing child in foster care the same as you would your own child, where you'd have their poster up everywhere and you'd be on the news and you'd be, yelling in the street, right? The same thing is not going to happen for a foster child in the name of privacy. But then in another example is that they don't even track them after they're adopted. Okay. So they're adopted, they're off our plate. We're not even going to worry about it. But I know of a story where a single woman was adopting 10 children. She had over time adopted 10 children. Well, the caseworker got this well, where are all the other children? You want to adopt this 11th child. So where are all the other 10 children? We're going to do a home visit and just see how your 10 children are, single woman, right? They get there and guess what?
Nobody there.
There's no children. There's no things. There's no stuff. So she's adopted this child and knowing that there's no tracking afterwards. Selling them?
Well, we know that I think the United States pays more money for children for pedophilia and other bad reasons than any other country on the planet. So we can make some assumptions, which is really, really sad. But I don't think we can close our eyes to this anymore. It's got to be thrown out there on what's actually happening to these kids and holding accountable the criminals in these organizations and CPS as a whole, which is a despicable organization. I think we need to talk about this. I really do. People need to know what's going on and be as disgusted as they can be about this. They're labeling it help, but it's just to cover their tracks. They're liars.
It's not helping. But I think back to David's point, I know this is really shifting gears, but I think people watching are going to be excited. When David talked about recess appointments, I think that is a real possibility. I mean, Thomas Massey has it on his X and his Telegram, a video where reporters are asking him, do you think Gates is going to be appointed if that's going to stick? And he said, recess appointments. And then he said, he's Attorney General, suck it up, he said to the reporters. So, I mean, it could be a real possibility because obviously Sarah and I for sure want RFKJ in office. And so you get worried about, is it going to withstand, the scrutiny and the debate? But if they do recess appointments, they are going to have to suck it up, just like Thomas Massey said.
Well, that's it. The dynamics going on right now are so interesting, and it could go in 100 different ways between now and then. So it's kind of like figuring out Bible prophecy. You kind of it's kind of fun and games. Let's see what's going on here and here. But until the Jesus' feet hit the ground, I think we're going to be asking ourselves a lot of questions. So, Sarah,
we need to be in our power position, which is on our knees in prayer and asking the Lord to make this whole thing happen.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So, Sarah, any other comments here?
No, I don't really think so. I'm kind of like the law nerd, and so I've always got my head in Idaho law and just like letting Misty and David handle some of the more out front stuff. And so
well, Sarah, really, you should tell people what we've done in Idaho, because it will inspire other people in other states, you know, how we've been able to push back on these exemptions in Idaho and what we've done. And really, I mean, you and I kicked some major health department booty there. So I think other people need to know about that and be inspired that you can actually push back the department.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. You're right. And I forget after all the years of work we've done.
Yeah, Sarah.
Go, Sarah, go. Go, Sarah, go.
I do have one interjection for Sarah as well, because I know she's been working on some cloud seeding legislation, and she's been discussing a little bit what they've been doing in our skies and affecting the water and how they're allegedly, you know, polluting our water. And so maybe you want to talk about that as well, Sarah, which is kind of looking forward into the next legislative session instead of looking back.
Okay, so yeah, we can do both. So as far as the exemptions, we started, well, way back when I was doing my vaccine research, when I was originally pregnant, like 2005. And then fast forward to 2011, I got in a fight with a school in Idaho about the exemptions. They were trying to force a very incriminating form on us. So I started pushing back on the Department of Health and Welfare. Then fast forward to 2015, Misty and I met up and started going to battle at the Capitol. We saw what was happening in California with SB 277 and the legislation there to destroy and remove the exemptions in California. I mean, the writing was on the wall. We knew what was coming. So we started battling in Idaho. Here in Idaho, we were able to not only maintain our 3 vaccine exemptions, but we actually strengthened them. We just kept hammering on the Department of Health and Welfare. And I can't like emphasize enough for people in every state, if you're not like familiar with who's in your Department of Health and Welfare at every level. And that's not just, I mean, there's the state level department, and then there's the county, you know, the county levels with your county commissioners. There's the health districts in Idaho. There's these multiple layers of government tyranny above us that have to be addressed. And we've just pushed back at every level. And then of course, during COVID, you know, I was pushing back on the schools. I had a child in a school that was trying to mask her, put plexiglass around her desk, segregate her from her classmates, all the things. So we were in there, you know, live streaming. We were doing all the things, just pushing back. And we were having, you know, some good wins. Of course, we were having some non-wins as well. We had a lot of things going on at the Capitol. We called for a special legislative session. There was other special legislative sessions called. I mean, we were at the Capitol just constantly. And it was a crazy scene. And I'm sure this happened in every state of, you know, our state police marching down the halls of our Capitol wearing full riot gear. It was a crazy, like emotional and political and in just every part of us like experience. Yeah. But we've had some good wins. And so this year, this most recent legislative session, 2024, we actually added to our exemptions that now college students and students 18 years of age and older in Idaho have exemptions, which was a huge dream of mine because, you know, we've had this gap where we have our kids we've protected. And then we had this gap where kids were going off to college, going to nursing school and pharmacy school and all these places. And the colleges in Idaho could force them to be vaccinated, not just COVID, but whatever they wanted, because there was no law to address it. And so we got vaccine exemptions for college students passed in one session. I'm so proud of that. So that was a huge win for us, of course. And so my dream that I've had sort of brewing in my head, and I've been drafting the legislation in my head for years and years, is to be the first state in the union to completely remove the vaccine mandate. So that's my goal. I would like to, in every place in Idaho law that it says vaccines are mandated, I would like it to be changed to a recommendation, which of course now praying that Robert Kennedy is appointed to Health and Human Services, maybe those CDC recommendations are going to change anyway. That would be huge. But either way, every parent has the right to make the decision for their own children. There should be no state mandates. That's ridiculous. And so that's my goal. My ultimate goal, God willing, is that we will be setting the standard in Idaho as the first state to remove all vaccine mandates.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's the vaccine front. And then as far as the cloud seeding, that's something that we have started to dive into in the last like year or two. The spraying in Idaho is horrific. Constant lines in the sky. We can all tell, we can all see it, we can all feel it. It'll be a perfectly blue sunny day. Then there's like a grid in the sky. And then the next day it's gray and hazy and smoggy and disgusting. And we all feel sick and we're having respiratory reactions to it. I have friends in the natural healing world and they tell me like they do, you know, detox foot baths and all these different naturopathic modalities. And they can tell when we're being sprayed with different things and more things, like things come out of people's feet and in different ways that look different and black and just, it's disgusting. So we have kind of, I'm trying to really navigate the world of what that looks like, because we have at the state level, we have cloud seeding going on, which is no secret. There's sections of Idaho law that have been in place since the 70s that talk about, you know, the structure and the funding for the cloud seeding program. Our governor likes to brag about it. Idaho Power, the power company here in the Treasure Valley, likes to brag about it. How they are out there, you know, making it rain. Look at all this rain. We're giving our farmers rain. We're out there putting silver iodide in the clouds and creating rain for our agriculture. And they think it's great. Of course, there's no studies, safety studies, like any data on whether or not that's safe. Of course, the people are not giving any consent, let alone informed consent. There's no consent to be spraying anything into the clouds. So that's a state level program with the cloud seeding that we can address in Idaho law. But then there's the, you know, the geoengineering, weather modification. There's a million different names for it that is happening as part of federal programs. I mean, I'm sure everybody's familiar with HARP and the weather modification that goes on. And so there's these federal chemtrail programs that we can't necessarily address at only the state level. That's going to have to be addressed at the federal level. I know some states like Tennessee are passing legislation saying you can't spray anything over our skies. And I am curious to see how that shakes out in the courts, because we know the federal government has jurisdiction over certain parts of certain things, whether you address it at the state level or not. So that journey for me is understanding what's happening at the state level that we can address versus the federal level.
What was the most challenging thing that you've run up against that you've learned to encourage others to step forward?
I would say, sort of as an umbrella statement, just to be engaged, be involved. It's a republic if we can keep it. It is the responsibility of every single one of us to know what's happening, like local and state and federal level, and to just be informed. I mean, I'm as busy as anybody. I have 3 kids, I have jobs, I have all the things going on, but we have to make it a point to be super involved and knowledgeable. And so, I mean, I'm no one special. Like anybody can just start educating themselves on what's in their, you know, city code, county code, state law, show up at the Capitol. I think in Idaho, what's been so effective is just the people are willing to rally together and push back and just say no. Like when the people just stand up and say no, that's the end of it. Like they can't, we outnumber them out there. And so when the people say no, we win.
True enough. So tell us some stories from you, David. What other things that you've seen?
Well, you know, I've seen a lot. So, I mean, if we're going back historically, I don't know if this is positive or negative, but I was one of the individuals, I guess, that was chosen or guided to be on the front lines against the police to try to access all of these different meetings, all of these different, you know, protests. And so I guess I kind of got caught up in the scrums a few times where the police would lay their hands on people and maneuver them and, you know, throw them out of the way a little bit. So there was some, you know, definitely stressful situations, you know, in Idaho when that was happening. I spent a fair amount of time with People's Rights and Ammon Bundy during the COVID mandates and lockdowns. And so I actually learned a lot about our government from Ammon Bundy. I didn't know a lot of the things that he talked about in the Constitution. And, you know, his good friend, Diego Rodriguez, that lost baby Cyrus to the local CPS. So we were all very active against St. Luke's. And ultimately, the name Idaho Extremist for myself comes from the court cases with baby Cyrus, where Devin Burkhart and Boise City Police did an extremism funnel where they talked about the people that were involved in pushing back. And they were calling us not only domestic terrorists, but they were calling us extremists. And so I was sitting in the courtroom covering the case, and they were putting my picture up on the big screen for the jury to go ahead and look at myself and another individual that were pushing back during the COVID lockdowns and mandates. They had us in the extremism funnel and were labeling us in court record as Idaho extremists. So it's not just a name I gave myself. I was covering it for Miste's. Miste had a publication called Idaho Dispatch that Sarah wrote for, I researched for, and Miste guided. And so at that point in time, I was there covering the court case for the Idaho Dispatch. And there my face spans up. And I was kind of looking at the jury, because you kind of have to find a way to see yourself outside of the political realm when you're, in a professional realm. I mean, some of the stuff that happened during COVID was so crazy. And I don't know, kind of like Dr. Malone talks about a cognitive dissonance or whatever. It's so different than the actual reality of what we live through every day. So it was kind of bizarre to sit there and see yourself be talked about by the police in front of a jury and be calling, an extremist in the funnel. And it was a far leftist police officer that had been brought in from the Berkeley area. He had been chosen by our far leftist mayor here in Boise, Idaho. And he was up there being paid by St. Luke's and Holland and Hart, which we've been active against in all of this with the Baby Cyrus stuff. But they ultimately had selected him and were paying him $1,000 a day to go ahead and testify against us. And so they were really working hard to take down people's rights, because people's rights, if you don't know, is ultimately a dispatch. It dispatches the people to go ahead and stand against their government when they're infringing upon the constitutional rights of the individual. So we would all receive text messages from Ammon Bundy's network that he had set up the software and the messaging. And it would say, here's the situation. Baby has been stolen. Diego Rodriguez's child, and thousands of people swarmed to St. Luke's because they were all saying, this is wrong. This is an infringement. You cannot steal our children, and the whole thing was very politicized as well. Diego Rodriguez just so happened to be Ammon Bundy's campaign manager. And so, Ammon Bundy had went against Brad Little, who's the current governor. Brad Little is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. His great-great-grandfather owned most of Idaho for sheep herding. The guy's probably never really had to work an actual day in his life. They own everything. He just sits up there, like you were talking about the oligarch. He is one of the Idaho oligarchs, along with like Jim Risch and Dirk Kempthorne and, Larry Craig and all these different names that they run Idaho. So ultimately, I'm just fighting against that all the time. I'll be at the State of the State again. ISP is there. I get swarmed by multiple officers everywhere I go. I can't go any political event without having people actually spotting me to make sure that I don't create some sort of tension between myself and the state when the state is pressing against our rights.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you're over the target on that.
Yeah. So that, it's exciting. It's definitely not something that I chose. I was called to be a part of this. I definitely do feel that it's a calling inside of me. I feel it in my spirit, feel it in my bones. And so, it's just what I do. And it's tense at times and it's upbeat. I walked into a Ada County Republican Central Committee last night, and we were trying to campaign for a different sheriff than the establishment wanted. So that put us on the outskirts. And then in addition to that, we have a current county prosecutor who allegedly is involved in quite a bit of corruption. And we've been trying to shine a light on that. So, we definitely have some concerns here between when you're pressing against your local sheriff and your local prosecutor and all the policing agencies that make up the fusion center in your state or your county. So for us, it's Idaho State Police, it's Meridian Police, it's, Ada County Sheriff's Department. So all of these different agencies, there's like 5 or 7, and they've all been meeting with our federal government agencies, with Josh Hurwitz, who's our U.S. Attorney General that brought Merrick Garland in, the current, United States Attorney General, to meet with all these people. So if we can have Matt Gaetz in there, I know that there might be some concerns about him, but Matt Gaetz would be 180 degrees better than Merrick Garland. So if we can get him in there and get our federal agencies in Idaho having to answer to him, I'm excited about that.
Wow. Yeah, this is going to be quite a time of change right now, which is absolutely wonderful. Misty, any other concerns, or is there anything else people can do to help you and what you're working on right now?
Oh, well, you can go to Health Freedom Idaho and just get educated and join, become a member, help support us. It's only $10 a year to be a member of Health Freedom Idaho. And we don't get paid, right? So we're not trying to fund our own paychecks. We're just trying to be able to fund health freedom in Idaho and help save kids. So anyway, I want to mention that, but also I wanted to tag on to what David was saying. I mean, Sarah and I and some other groups, local groups here. So we had Health Freedom Idaho, Idaho Freedom Foundation, and Second Amendment Alliance stood up against the governor when he said, anybody who wasn't essential was supposed to stay home, which he then later lied about and said he never did it. But we had a humongous rally. And that rally, that everyone who was essential rally, landed Sarah and I on the FBI watch list. So really? Just to say everybody's essential, it's so wild and extreme that gets you on the FBI watch list. So I'm really hoping Matt Gaetz cleans that up and is like, you know what? We need to stop watching everybody. We need to, let people be free. Let people just live their lives.
That might be a badge of honor, though.
I think so.
I mean, I do. That's fine, but I also don't want all the open doors that gives them to spy on me and my family and everybody I know.
Right.
Well, it's a setup for prosecution. I mean, go back to the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act was all about, surveillance and turning us into the enemy of the state when the state is the enemy of the people right now. I mean, the war that's going on is, our own government is at this point in time kind of the enemy, and they need to be constrained like the Constitution requires them to be, not just do whatever they want to do, and unfortunately, I don't think they quite get it. Oh, I just noticed a picture on your website. This is awesome. You got it documented, them spraying.
And one other thing, Donna, that Misty and Sarah didn't mention is their website has been severely attacked through COVID. I think that they had their website taken down multiple times. Maybe one of them can speak to that.
Oh gosh, well, Julie, who's always trying to protect the site, it's almost impossible. I had a Misty for Liberty website, and it just was totally destroyed and out. But we put our focus on the Health Freedom Idaho website, and it's just totally gone. I was going to mention to you regarding the spraying of the skies, if you're interested, Matt Landman was just here and showing his movie Frankenskies. He is such a good resource if you want somebody on to talk about what they're doing in our skies. Matt Landman is the guy.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I'll talk to you when we get off get offline, and then maybe we can bring a couple people on together and have you back, and we can talk again and have a nice little group that's talking about the things that you guys are working on and such, and expand that a little bit. That would be really nice.
Yeah, he's also the EMF guy, so he's just like a wealth of knowledge. So he'd be great.
Well, we were talking before you got on today about what's happening with the internet, because I own a little tech company, and we monitor what's happening right now. And a couple of months ago, we were starting to see that the internet archiving was actually failing, and things were disappearing off the internet at rapid fire. And so when everything else was down on the internet, for some reason, we were able to keep BNN up, and which was kind of fun. They kept trying to hack us, and we monitor all that sort of thing. Wow. So I just told everybody, I said, keep it up. You're going to have 100,000 little Donna Brandenburgs out there. You're going to be playing whack-a-mole with it. So it's not going to work well. Yeah. So we ended up putting up a couple of Tor nodes, and we actually know how to do it, right? Wow. And so the hacking kind of stopped right there. But in the last couple of days, what we're watching a huge amount of disruptions across the United States. And one of the hubs, which is Chicago, there's some weird stuff going on in Chicago and passing traffic back and forth across the United States. But if you lose your access to having a website, just give me a call, and we will probably be able to get you up very quickly and actually protect you. In fact, I've talked to a lot of people out there who repeatedly have their stuff taken down. And it's like, right now, we get attacked. Sure, we do, like everybody else does that's telling the truth. However, I think we're in a pretty good spot to actually keep things up. And so if you're having problems, give me a call, and we will do what we need to see if we can help you stay up and get your message out there. Because I'm not really sure. Maybe we do some cybersecurity, we do some other things. I'd say we're kind of probably a little ahead of the curve with what's out there, and we don't play ball with the globalists. So that's the other thing. If you can cut them off with the knees, that's kind of what you got to do, outperform them a little bit. In fact, you'll think this story is funny. When we invite, you have to have them come in and check your system out. So they say, to get a security the certificates. We have to lower our security down because they'll say, hey, we can't get in to check your security. To which we laugh. We lower our security, let them check it, and feel all good about how smart they are. Which when we look at them and go, you guys are pretty stupid, actually. And then as soon as they're out, then we raise our security again and get their little pathetic security statement that we had to help them in order to actually check.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that funny?
That is funny.
This should be an encouragement to everybody out there, honestly, that's fighting a good fight. These people really are pretty stupid. They really are. And it's like, they're like diabolically stupid, and they always leave a crack in their argument or in their operation. So the only thing we have to do is we just got to keep moving forward as God leads us through this, and we're already winning. And so we just have to realize there's going to be temporary setbacks. There's going to be things as we clean this nest of Satanists out that are running things. Because the bottom line is that you're either serving God, you're serving good, or you're serving evil. There's no merging of those two issues. And so as we're cleaning the nest out of the corrupt, we just have to keep going and never stop. And realize if you're getting attacked, give yourself a hand of applause, because that means that you're over the target and you're causing us some problems, So, well, I tell you what, we're going to say a prayer and end this today, and then we'll talk in a little bit after. Stay on the line, and then I'll give you each 30 seconds to say last words before we end. Okay?
Okay.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so very, very much for this wonderful day that you've given us, and also other people, our brothers and sisters, to walk forward in doing your good works here on earth. And we know that we are the body of Christ. We are your representatives here, and we're here to do good things. We ask you to guide us and direct us into what it is that you would have us do today. Not what we want to do, but what you would want us to do. We're willing to do whatever you ask us to do. I ask your favor on Misty and David and Sarah and other David and Ralph and Karen and all the wonderful people like Nick and Stephanie who are on today. We ask that your favor rest upon them mightily, and that you would open doors for them, and that you would make their path straight so that they can continue to serve you here on this earth. And we ask for all those people, we pray for all those people in CPS, that you would absolutely speak to their hearts, that you would bless them with the knowledge of you, that they would turn around from their evil ways, from their ways of hurting children, and that they would walk away. I ask that everyone would abandon these disgusting agencies that have overstepped their reach, their usurpation of the Constitution, as well as the damage that they've done to families and children, that they would walk away and they would rely on you to fix the situation in their own personal lives. Thank you so much for being a good friend to us. We want to be a friend to you, and we love you so very much. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, around the room, let's go. David, Pettinger, then Sarah and Misty, and then Dr. David.
All right. So what I would like people to look at is natural resources. My concerns right now are what they're doing with the fires. The fires are being amplified by what they're spraying in the skies. I'm concerned about what that's doing to our water, what that's doing to our timber. what that's doing to our soil. So please look into this. I don't think that all this is just, natural, as a lot of you would probably agree with. So we're keeping a track on that, because what they burn in the forest, then they create the rain, they're going to flood, they're going to wash out roadways, they're going to create distribution problems. And so I'm looking at our natural resources, keeping an eye on timber, land, soil, and how they're trying to take control of our water. So that's a big focus of mine, and I hope that some of your followers find that interesting and focus on that as well.
Sarah.
I would just say, I know it can be overwhelming. There's a million things to work on in this world at every level. Do what you can do what you're called to do, pray for guidance, and pray to have God use you for, using your gifts that you were given by God to make every change you can at whatever level. If that just means being involved with your kids and paying really close attention to what's happening at school, or hopefully taking them out of public schools, then do that. Start there. I mean, whatever you're called to do it with your whole heart, and be as educated as you can, and make change at any of the levels that you're able to. And I'm happy to always give guidance on any of the things that we've worked on. If we can help out other states, other communities, I'm happy to do that. There's been court cases I've been involved in. I've shared those documents with people. There's the legislation we've done, and the vaccine exemptions, and all these things that we work on. If we can help out and cooperate with other communities and other states, I'm happy to do that.
Miste.
Well, I think I'm tracking with Sarah as usual, in that we're nobody special, but we're willing servants. And so I just want to encourage everybody out there that your liberty is yours to defend. And all it takes is being a willing servant. So some people say to me, well, aren't you afraid? Don't you get scared? Listen, I cast off the spirit of fear. The spirit of fear doesn't own me. I had an autoimmune disease that nearly took my life. And I guess, when you live past that, it's I'm on extra time already. And I know how much that I'm his, and that he is the giver and taker of life. So I just want to encourage everybody. You don't have to be afraid. Walk in knowing that you are a child of God, and that he's got you. Of course he does. As much as he has the birds of the air, he has you. So work every day to defend your liberty, knowing that you are his, and cast off, just like Jesus did, the spirit of fear, and keep walking on. And then I'm going to quote Dr. Ron Paul, because he's just the best, and remind everybody of something that he said. The individual, private charity, families, and faith-based organizations should take care of people, not the government.
Bravo.
Great.
Dr. David.
Well, I'd like to contradict something that you said that you're not special. I think you guys are really special, and heroes and patriots. And I think it's just absolutely incredible. And if more people stood up and did what you're doing, we would not be in the situation we're in.
Well, that's
so
true.
You should be an inspiration for everybody. And I appreciate everything you're doing.
Well, thank you, Dr. David. I appreciate that.
Agreed. It's very, very amazing. Well, you guys are in the right spot, because we've been talking about international treaties and how they've really ripped through there's a basis, including the UN, but the international treaties that have been tearing down our nation. And just so you know that in the state of Michigan, I've done quite a bit of work on the DNR here, which is now Eagle, and what Eagle has done in the state of Michigan, which is absolutely criminal. They have taken over 4.6 million acres and have the rights to all of our mineral rights and logging. And I was up to Camp Grayling, and they're clear cutting our land and stealing the resources here like there's no tomorrow, in a land grab and everything. So everyone needs to really watch these government organizations and work very hard to assert the 10th Amendment and kick them out of your state.
Yes.
They need to be removed. And if the legislators aren't willing to do it, they're traitors.
That's right.
And we need to stand on that, stand together on those issues. These people are evil, and they're out for their own gain, and they don't really care who they hurt in the process. So
Donna, they're going to want to do that here in Idaho. So I'd actually really like to interview you about this topic, if we can set that up, because they're coming. We're called the Gem State for a reason. They're coming.
Yeah, I can tell you what I've seen across the state, and it's been pretty concerning. I was up at Camp Grayling. I had a private tour up there and spent quite a bit of time in the officers club and such, and then was also looking around and seeing the connections up there with what there was not one military person on that base. It was all staff with it was DNR, it was State Department employees, as well as DK security. If you want to look into something, there's a rabbit hole to go down, because DK security, I'm going to tell you what, the head of the snake right now, in my opinion, is Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's in my backyard, and there's a reason why I say that. And the connections run right straight through to some really bad organizations and some bad connections to the Dutch banking families, as well as some of the security nonsense that's going on across the United States. And case in point, I had my life threatened by one that's sitting right at the top of these people, and they can go pound sand, because I'm not going to shut up.
So Donna, one thing as to that I've noticed, that maybe some of your viewers have noticed as well, is what they want to create, is this carbon market that they're already creating. And so as they're taking control of these lands, they want to make them so that, they're fallow, so that there's no growth and that there's no commerce coming off of that except for the carbon. And so we were following the natural asset companies that a lot of Western states were fighting against. So really what they want to do is create a new stock exchange off of carbon. And we need to keep, be mindful of that, because that's something that this current administration is going to push for. It's something that the Western Governors Association is pushing for. Everything is carbon sequestration, carbon markets, carbon coin, monetizing. You can currently, right now, you can buy Amazon rainforest coins in South America that allegedly preserves areas of the rainforest that are being traded on a market so that they don't get farmed, which sounds great. But once all the land is sold and can't be utilized for any purpose, we all starve.
Well, if we go back to Oprah and the AOL guy, Michael, what's his last name? They bought 1,400 acres out on Kauai years ago, about 2008. This was a big deal, and they literally trashed that area. And that goes back to wondering exactly what was going on there, considering the links to John of God and some of the other child trafficking nonsense that can be, traced. Yeah, look at the big picture, everybody. I know you guys do, but remember, look at the big pictures. There are patterns out there that you can follow, and trust that God's talking to you and telling you things that he is. So with it said, boys and girls, that's just part of the show that we go to ding, 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 brandenburgforgovernor.com, because I'm the best non-conceder is ever not conceded in the history of the United States of America. And I would like to talk to the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, about this in cowboy boots. So with that said, everybody, God bless you all. God bless all those.
Thank you for the time,
America. Have a great day today. You know what? If you don't have a good example, be one, because our behavior should not be dependent on the people around us to justify bad behavior. Be the example. Be the one that pushes back. Be the one that calls out things. Say the unpopular things that need to be said, and never shut up. Never, never, never back down. So you guys have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us again. And we'll be back on Monday. And I've got a special guest on Monday too that I can't remember who it is right now, but we'll be on with Vicki Davis in the morning, going through the treaties and the international treaties and such. And then after that, I've got another special guest, and I can't think who it is, but it's going to be great. So have a great day. You guys stay on the line a minute. I'm going to end the show, and then we'll talk for a few seconds.